Hello, I'm Anthony Aljamie. I'm a board member of Southern California Sister Cities, and I'm here with Thelma Press, one of the co-founders of SoCal Sister Cities, and she's going to speak with us about how SoCal Sister Cities was founded. Thelma, tell us, how was Sister Cities originally founded?
Well, in 1956, President Eisenhower decided that he would have a city-to-city twinning. Now, the twinning really started in The Hague in 1936. They called it town affiliation. And it came over to the United States. And he was aware of cities twinning with cities, but we hadn't done that in the United States. And so when the idea was brought to him, he liked the concept of cities twinning with cities, people involving themselves with people, children then whole entire families would become families with their twin counterpart overseas. And with that concept, they would become a family. And through that concept, maybe peace would develop in the world, because you're certainly not going to war with your family. And since then, since 1956, we have grown, and we're in 138 nations. And we have twins of over 2,000 cities all around the world, with American cities, in a cross-section of the communities of the world. So we're part of a global community now. And it's important because it allows a city to be part of an international global community, not just local or just United States of America. And it becomes a learning tool for people when they interact with one another.
Mm-hmm. And can you tell us a little bit about the structure? So Sister Cities International is the...
When Sister Cities first began, we were adopted by the League of Cities. The League of Cities is an organization that has all the cities in the United States belong. And they meet a couple times a year to discuss problems of a city or other different rules and regulations that cities face in their different states. And they also have a conference of mayors. But the League of Cities adopted us for a while till we could generate our own organizational housing and so forth. And gradually, it happened in 1970. We hired an executive director, and we went into small headquarters in Washington, D.C. And that began the growth of Sister Cities. In 1970, a conference was held in San Diego, and after that we had conferences every year in different areas.
How did you first become involved in Sister Cities?
Well, I lived in San Bernardino, and I was first in Pasadena, and we moved to San Bernardino. And the mayor of the city called me because he had a request from the mayor of Tachikawa, because we had an Air Force base there. And in San Bernardino, we had Norton Air Force Base. And he had heard about this program. He never did tell me how he heard about it, but he was very aware of this program, and he called the base commander, and he said, I would like to have an American city as a twin. He spoke very good English. And the base commander communicated that the base commander in California, in San Bernardino, and sent an emissary from one of his staff members and met with the mayor. So the mayor called a few people, and I was one of them. And he said, what do you think of the idea? And he asked us to all give our comments. And I said, well, I have quite a few children, 5 children, and I think that it's important that the children of today interact with the children of Japan of today, and not concern ourselves or let them have the guilt of what their parents' generation was confronted with. And that was the reason I belonged. And from that, I then went on to a conference in 1972 in Seattle, Washington. Now, in the American cities, many of the mayors really took an active part to encourage their citizens to participate. And after that conference, the executive director, Tom Gittens, who we had hired, called me and said, would you like to be a state representative? And he explained to me the system of interacting with the cities in California, and he gave me a count of the cities and their numbers and so forth. And so I started communicating with the cities, telling them who I was and if I could be of an assistance. Now, Betty Wilson, who was the mayor of Santa Fe Springs, and I think she was the first female mayor in California, she sat with President Eisenhower, with a few of our other distinguished early members who happened to be mayors of cities, and signed the agreement to form sister cities. And Betty and I had good communication because she was the board member in the area. And so I kept in touch with her, and in calling all the different cities in California, after a few years, we also tried to introduce other members across the states to the state representative system. And we had one from Boston, and we had one from Arizona. And I remember the one from Tempe, Arizona, he was the mayor of the city, and he walked in, he said, I want to be a state representative too, you know. And so it was really developing into a lot of enthusiastic members wanting to participate and help. Well, as let's say 73 and 74, as we got around, a gentleman from Montebello called me, Mr. Suzuki, and he said, Presson, I want to have an organization like the Mexican sister cities, with Japanese and U.S. sister cities. And I sat and talked with him, and I said, you know, that's not a very good idea, because then you'll want the French cities to have their own organization, and you'll want the British ones to have their own organization, and you're going to splinter Sister Cities International. But I didn't want to just have him hear that from me. So we asked a member of Glendale, Annabelle. She had a beautiful home with a Japanese garden, and she said, I'll have a luncheon, and let's gather some of groups in Southern California to meet, and let's discuss this. So we had a couple of the board members on the board come, and Betty organized it with me, and we met there. And after he heard what the Mexican cities had to say, he said to me later, I guess you're right. I think we should all maybe just think about this and not have individual committees. So Betty and I spoke for a while, and I said, I think we need to have something to bring everybody together, maybe once every 3 months or something like that. And we hashed it out, and then we came up with a chapter or a council. And the next year, we met in Palm Springs. That was about 74, going on to 75, because 76 was going to be a national conference in Palm Springs. So we met there, and we brainstormed and put some rules and regulations down to start bylaws. And then Mayor Wilson went back, Betty went back to her city in Santa Fe Springs, and she was just loved very much in that city. And I guess she approached the city attorney, and everybody put their heads together and came up with some bylaws. And that was the beginning. But we looked at the entire state of California. And being such a large state, it was getting cumbersome. So we decided we would have Northern and Southern California. And that was the birth of the Sister Cities Southern California, Northern California chapter or council, whichever they had chosen to be.
Oh, so it was both of them at the same time?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And were you involved with Northern California, or then from that point
well,
on?
at the beginning, we were all involved, Northern and South. And then when we divided, I was just Southern California, but we'd go to the activities of Northern California, and they'd come down to us. I mean, there was good interaction, because we were kind of learning from one another what was needed in the state. From starting the chapters or the councils, whatever they wanted to call themselves here, we also then spread across the United States. Hopefully that we would have one in each state, so we'd have 50 chapters. And I think we arrived at something like 45 at one time. And I don't think we actually had, I think maybe we did have 50. But you know, as people get older, the problem is with every organization, they must pass the torch to the younger generations. They must bring them in. So you have a continuation of efforts, of spirit, of information passing through. And many of them have done that, and so they're active chapters. Some have not been quite so active. But then we went on with the state representatives to become state coordinators. And at one time, we had 50 state coordinators. But then they also have become interested in working to make a living for their families. They were younger people. And also, some of them passed away. And so now we're at about 30. So the point is, with every organization, you must bring in young people to take over if you are going to survive. And so that's a pattern we're working on now. But the Southern California chapter, when we first started, what we concentrated on doing is to talking to the cities. What are your needs? What are your problems? What can we help you with? And gradually, we learned what they needed to improve their programs, what kind of ideas we could give them to interact into the community. And we were kind of, became a visiting team. We had a meeting once a year, generally, but we were always on call as a visiting team to either speak with them or to visit them and help, discuss it with their group, how to improve their programs, how to go into other programs like youth exchange or art exchange or sport exchanges. And so we became like the mothers of the different areas. Betty took an area and I took an area, and then we had some others that became interested. And we moved around all by either in person or by telephone. And they got a lot of help. And in our efforts to communicate with them, we explained to them about the annual conference, business meetings, and if they couldn't come to an annual conference, they could at least share the information that others would bring to them at the Southern California meetings, so they could improve their programs and become successful.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned that involving youth is kind of key to keeping the program vibrant.
Well, I think involving the younger generation is key to any organization for the future. Because if you don't pass that torch of knowledge and involvement, the organization won't survive.
Have you seen any successful cases where you've seen youth involved in a...
Yes, there are two cities that have a very good example. One is San Bernardino. San Bernardino is, in their student exchange, is now in Japan 4th generation. In San Bernardino, it's 3rd generation. The early students that went, and as they participated as students and they became parents, then they came back to take the responsibility as chairpersons or program, chairman, because their kids were getting interested. And so that's how one generation to another has. And then there's Tempe, Arizona. Tempe, Arizona sends about close to 60 students a year. They have 9 sister cities. And that's students going and students coming. Their count is like close to 60. And their students come back again, and their parents are there, just like in San Bernardino. And they are, from one year to another, they take the responsibility for student programs, for students' language programs, and they're very thorough in their preparations for the students, very, very thorough.
Are there certain sister cities that are just very successful, known for being vibrant and active sister cities beyond the youth programs there that you described?
Yes, there's a large count. They all have great successes in different fields. I mean, right now we've had nationally, and then the grants go spread down. to the cities. We've had the Gates Foundation that gave us grants in Africa, and the programs that were initiated were sanitation and digging wells for water. And that has been very successful. And that can be applied to any city that's in the Sister City program if they are twinned and have an African citizen. San Diego has TEMA, and they've applied in time for a grant. But you're able to apply for any of these grants available. Now there's an award being given for Chinese affiliated cities. And any city across the United States in our program that's affiliated with China can apply for that award. And we have awards with maybe Japan, to the Japan Foundation. So they have a great number of opportunities to involve themselves to apply for these grants. And it's a wonderful opportunity for the young people to be involved, to spread their wings, you might almost say, to a different part of the world.
Mm-hmm. So you've had many homestay students stay in your home.
Yes.
And you've been involved in intercultural relations in one way or another for many years now.
That's right.
What interested you in other cultures and people from other cultures?
Well, I grew up in different parts of the world. And so my feeling of a world community was brought to me at a very young age. And I've always wanted to reach out to people, because unless you are part of a growing family, a world family, you don't really know what your neighbor is doing, and you have a better understanding of the human association.
You grew up in various countries. Which countries?
Well, I was in England, and then I was in the Far East, in India, in the northern part by the Himalayas. And so and then over there you see a variety of different of faces, nations. You know, you have a Chinese influence coming in, and you have Bhutan, you have Sikkim, and so the areas of the world that people don't even know about, I was aware of.
How did you get that experience? Was your father?
My father was, I was British before I was an American.
Oh.
So my father was with the British service.
Oh.
Just like an Air Force kid, you know. My girl guide teacher, who was, you know, like a Girl Scout teacher, she was the governor's wife of a province called Assam, which is an area close to Burma. And her husband later became the governor of Bengal or the viceroy before Mountbatten came in. So, you know, as a young person, I had a lot of exposure to an international arena.
Do you think that intercultural relations are important?
Oh, absolutely.
Why?
Because I think it makes you more sensitive and aware of the world around you, and more sensitive to individuals in other countries, you know. I remember when I first came into the United States, I thought Americans were very ignorant because they didn't know where this country was or that country was. And then when the Vietnam War started, I said to my husband, this country is safe now because the younger people are really learning what's around them and what other parts of the world they can focus on. But the older generation, you know, very satisfied with their own backyard and their own home style, that if you ask them, do you know where this country is? Nobody seemed to know. And the other thing that's so important, in America, we're a nation of nations. So when a child comes from Japan, he or she doesn't just have a one cultural type of person, like if our kids go to Japan, it's just Japanese. Here, they have a variety, they have the world in America. So they go in a home, the mother's background could be Irish, could be Spanish, could be English, it could be Bavarian, father could be something else. So they have they have the world, a mixture of the world. So there's a learning experience there. You know, you especially get it in America. Because of our international programs today, we've become a global community. And I hope we continue being a world of one people.
Is that how war is prevented, you think?
Absolutely. If you become a friend or become part of a family, how can you war with them? I'd have a problem going to war with people I know. Because people are the same all over the world. We're born, we grow up, we're lucky if we survive, if we don't have sickness. Everybody gets sick or hell have children. Human beings are similar. And the people don't make war. It's the people that rule nations. For some reason or another, they make war. But people don't make war against each other. Families don't make war against each other. I don't know how we'd ever get out of that. Through Sister Cities, we make a great deal of friends, and hopefully that would help against having war in this world. You know, there's an organization that was called Seeds of Peace. I think it's still active. And it brought Israeli kids and Palestinian kids together. And I remember an Israeli child saying, "Oh my God, I'm sharing a bedroom with a Palestinian kid." You know, growing up, they were at war. But by the time their tenure was over at this camp, they'd loved each other like brother and sisters. And they said that when they had conflicts, they would call each other, "Are you all right?" So you can see what has happened through interaction with young people from different nations together. They become familiar with one another. And if you become familiar with one another, it's your friend. You're certainly not going to shoot your friend.
So have you attended Sister Cities international conferences then?
Yes, I've attended the conferences since 1967.
Every year?
Every year. Betty Wilson had the first one that I had attended, was in Los Angeles. She was a remarkable woman. As I said, she sat with Eisenhower when they did the signing of the Sister Cities. And she was the first woman mayor in California. And she went on to serve in the city of Santa Fe for years and years and years. So, and even when she got older and she'd come to the national conference, they'd make sure if her husband couldn't come, she had an escort to go with her. She was really a brilliant woman. She brought in a lot of innovative ways for for Santa Fe Springs, and encouraged the young people again to participate. And every so once in a while at the conferences, I meet a young person who is now an adult and comes up to me and is so happy to see me and remembers their Mayor Wilson. Yeah. And we, since then, have had them all over the country. We used to have a plan where you went East Coast, Midwest, and West Coast, and it rotated yearly. So everybody had a chance to be involved and give cities a chance to be part of the conferences. And when we had our conference here in San Diego in 1967, I was co-chair. And we did a Pacific Rim day before, and we had 1,500 delegates. And I'm hoping San Jose will do an Asian connection or Pacific Rim as well, because we're so close to this theater of the world that it would have a lot of delegates coming. And each one had an opportunity to make presentations of what, through Sister City Connections, they had improved the life of younger people and improved areas of their cities. So it was very interesting, their achievements.
What vision do you have for Sister Cities in the future?
Well, I can see great growth, but I hope the growth is with the young people. We have set so many young people that have been involved that have gone on to become mayors, diplomats, physicians, lawyers, professors, and they carry their knowledge of how you communicate with people. And that's so helpful to young people growing in this world today. So I hope that we will be successful and continue on bringing one generation, another generation, till maybe the end of time, I hope, so that the concept and the philosophy of sister cities will always be alive. And in Southern California, I hope that all of you who are active today will spread out and help the cities around that have been declining in their programs, because it's so important to bring them up to another level again and to encourage them to bring in more young people and exchanges in whatever fields they can exchange it.
So young people are very important for sister cities, and do you think it's important to extend the relationship to schools?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The more people you involve, the more children you involve, you know, it furthers the program. And today, with all this high tech that's available, it's amazing what these young people come up with to communicate. We have a couple here in San Diego in the Yokohama committee that are just brilliant. And we're looking at doing some programs through the internet and Google. They've designed something. They've designed the website of the committee, and it's just amazing what they come up with. So there's a very bright future.
What about joint class projects between schools?
Well, what they're looking at doing here is doing a class program through the internet. Before, they write letters as pen pals. And they have exchanges of students coming over. More of the cities do that. They'll come for a month, and then they'll stay in the homes of the students that were selected, and then they go back and forth. And we usually have given them projects to write on, some kind of a theme program that they would research in the country of their exchange, and then give a report and so forth. But now with the high tech, you know, the design of what one of our Yokohama's looking at is designing maybe a scientific program and selecting two schools, one here and one over in Yokohama, and having the students work together on that project and see what the success of the project would be, what they find out, almost like a science fair, you know, but communicating that way.
An international, global science fair between the two
right.
countries. I see. So San Diego's sister city is Yokohama?
We have 16 sister cities, but the first one was Yokohama, the second was Leon, Mexico. We have another in Mexico, we have China, we have Korea, we have Brazil. You know, just like every city, you start adding on and adding on. And, but some of them are more active than the others. And of course, same thing. Some of the ones that were active, they've gotten older. Some of them have brought in young people, and some haven't. And the ones that haven't brought in young people are less active.
What are some of the more active countries in Sister Cities International?
Well, Japan ranks as the #1. It used to. It was 200 sister cities. It's now at 170 or 80. Mexico, because of near approximate, you know, the nearness of the country of Mexico. We have, let's see, we have European cities that are pretty high up in range. Africa's getting there. And so the rest are balanced. But your major ones are Mexico and Japan. And Korea is getting up there. Now, we're looking at doing more with India nationally. We don't have enough in India, so we're looking at going there in January, maybe nationally, to see what we can link up. We do have some very good linkages that have hospitals. So that's been a good program, because students come here to study. They don't want to go back. But through the linkages of hospitals, they study and they go back to their own communities, because you can't do a brain drain. You have to let them, what they've learned, to allow them to go back to their countries and work with their own people. So that's been a very good linkage.
What organizations have supported Sister Cities?
Well, we interact with a great number of organizations that have international programs. Some years ago, the State Department did a weekend program at the University of Colorado at Boulder, and brought in all the international programs together to interact. There was the National Visitors Association. There's people to people, but that's just one-on-one. There's international scholars and teachers exchange. There's all the international programs that exchange. And we still interact with them. And many times new programs are introduced and they come to Sister Cities. Can we interact with you? We have to watch money, I mean, we can't bring in these programs and support them and kind of advertise them, because it takes money. But we do tell our membership, if you would like to interact with this international program, feel free to do so. There's American Field Service. American Field Service for many years interacted very closely with us. And there was another one, let's see, International, I think it was International Living. There were so many, and some of them have gone out of, you might say, out of business. But it always takes funds to continue on.
What about corporate sponsors?
Yeah, we've had a lot of corporate sponsors. We've had Kellogg Foundation over the years that gave us money to do youth programs, youth training. We had Coca-Cola. Of course, we have the Gates Foundation now. Kettering Foundation. We had a lot of foundations.
Are corporate sponsors important to the success of Sister Cities?
Oh, absolutely. The reason for that is that they give us funds either for training or for working in countries they're interested in to better the situation of living in that country. And that way you have sometimes in a city, you might have a person from city government going over there to train city government, and allowing them to come over to spend some time. So when Poland had their changes, with cooperation of Sister Cities, they brought a lot of officials over. And I remember they housed them in Chicago, because Chicago had a large Polish population, and allowed them to interact with the cities to see how city governments ran. So there's a great deal that's done with Sister Cities, because we have such a spread, with cities. In other words, we're cities to cities.
Speaking of money, are there business advantages for people? Are there professional advantages?
There is a development that can happen from your counterpart to be involved in business.
What about just the learning aspect of it, learning about different cultures? Do you think that will help?
Oh yes, I had a gentleman that came from Kawasaki, Japan, who was a sister city of Baltimore. Okay. And he came to me because he wanted to study archives, how to archive. So we share, if somebody comes to me and says, please help me, I want to know more about this field. Well, I'll check and see which sister city is the expert, has the expertise, and I'll recommend them to go. And I've done that over and over again.
So what is the recipe for a successful sister city relationship?
To have a total cooperation, not only with the citizens, but with the officials, all ages, study what's needed in your sister city, what you can interact with, become a good partner. And that's what makes a successful sister city.
What's the biggest mistake a sister city can make in dealing with their counterpart sister city?
Well, I think you don't tell them what they should have to do. You know, work it out. If you have a program, say, this is what we're looking at. How would you think you could cooperate with us? Don't say you have to do this. And always mind the protocol between two cities. That's so important. You know, don't worry about, I took them a gift and they didn't have a gift for me. You know, it's nothing like that. It's how you can achieve a friendship by cooperation. Mm-hmm.
So do you think that sister cities is going to become more diverse in the future?
I think sister cities is going to grow. We have a very good executive director right now, and president of CAO. She interacts widely with other organizations and in the international arena. She informs our State Department of what we're involved with, and makes a point of going to the League of Cities and the Conference of Mayors. It's all personal contact, and she's out there out front making those contacts for us. I think we need to strengthen ourselves a little more with corporations. But it's important that our members are aware of different corporations and maybe have an input with corporations, because it's who you know that gets you where you want to go. And if that happens, I think there's great expectations for sister cities. Because if you remember, when you move around, people say, sister cities, what is that? You think everybody knows about sister cities, but invariably there are people that say, never heard of it. So that's why you have to spread the word.
How many countries have you visited?
Well, I think from my childhood, close to 100. Of course, they've changed so much. All the Himalayan countries, Malaysia, Singapore. I've seen so many changes in Singapore, in Asia. And then I've been all over Europe, but I never went to Romania. For some reason, Romania was always passed.
And what country have you visited most frequently or more times?
Europe, probably. Well, Japan I've been 12 times. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Probably Japan, 12 times, one country. But I've been to Europe, but then Europe, you know, you go from one area to another, you drive, you're in another area. But probably Japan.
What do you like about Japan?
Well, I think the beauty of the gardens. I'm on the Japanese garden here on the board, which was helped started by our sister city affiliation, a linkage with Yokohama through our sister cities. And the gardens are beautiful there. The cleanliness is just lovely. Times have made a change. In the early days, in the late 50s and 60s, it was a different pattern of communication, where there was much more reverence to the elderly. Now, as things have changed, the younger people are up there with all the knowledge of everything. It's hustle and bustle, but there's still a beauty in the serenity of their landscaping. And I was watching CNN about this, I forget his name now, but he's traveling the world eating food all over. And he says, Anthony Bourdain, and he says, he was asked the best food and the best chefs, and he said it's in Japan because of the beauty of their presentations and the quality of the food, the taste of the food. But I would say of all the countries I've visited, there's a difference. I mean, in Europe you have the early culture, the antiquity of the areas, the wonderful art over the centuries. But as far as your first impression is the peacefulness of the beauty around you. Not because Tokyo, there's a hustle and bustle of traffic. But if you go beyond that, you have the serenity that you feel.
And you must be attracted to Japanese art, I take it.
Yes. Well, I'm attracted to Asian art, you know, because it's the efforts of the human being, the carving and everything like that.
Have you developed any hobbies that you've been introduced to through your experiences?
Yeah, I've made dolls. It's called Kime Kome dolls. I've made 25 of them.
You made this doll?
Yes, I dressed her. The base is made from some kind of fiber, and they mold it. And then you have to kind of sand it down so it's really smooth. And then you cut the fabric, and then you have a certain glue you make, and you have to increase the lines of putting the fabric with the glue in so that it stays.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
So I've made 25 of those.
25, huh? How long does it take you to make one?
Well, if you sit all day, you can maybe do it in about 8 or 10 hours. But it's nice to take your time with it. Because not only are you making it, but you're enjoying each layer of work that you do because, you know, of the different patterns of the fabric, you know. The Japanese, when they do work, they take pleasure, or even when they cook, or their arrangements, so they can see everything. So when you make a doll, I mean, you can go at it real fast, but if you do it in a slow pattern way, then you enjoy the differences of fabric and the differences of design.
Do you have a message for young people today who are considering joining Sister Cities?
I do. I hope they join in hundreds, all of them. But to come in and be part of your community through your sister city, you'll have so much to learn and so many contacts to make that will make a difference in your life. And through sister cities, you learn about other cultures, and you learn true communication of one-to-one, and that's what's important.
How has it made a difference in your life?
Well, I think it's added a certain dimension to my life, which has brought in more children into my life through our Sister Cities exchanges. I mean, I can claim 300 of them that I've worked with and seen the progress they've made and the successes they've made. And we've lost a few children, too. In Japan, young ones that have had heart attacks and things like that. But they've all become part of my family, and it's enriched my family with knowing these young people. And their parents, you know, have added a lot to the lives of my family. Because you're not just an American family, you've become a world family. And money can't buy that. You know, it's on a one-to-one relationship.
So I understand that you've had many homestay students in your home over the years.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about it?
You know, Sister Cities is an amazing organization. I mean, I grew up with Japanese sisters and brothers from the age of like 5 or 6, and my Japanese sisters are still my sisters. And we're still, thank God for Facebook, we're all still very close in email. But I mean, it was amazing, and you know, I never thought anything, you know, odd about having family members from other countries, and I think that as a child growing up, it really teaches you more about, you know, compassion and accepting of all cultures, because it was the norm in my house. And you know, they were family members. My parents brought two of my Japanese sisters back, and they went to college and lived with us for each of them for a year, 2 years, and my brothers, and you know, one brother came and went skiing with us one winter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and when we went over as kids, we actually got to live in the home of my oldest Japanese sister for a month with her parents. So, you know, it's like they're my family.
It's enriched your life, obviously.
Oh, it's amazing. It's the coolest thing. I mean, I'm so blessed. I'm so lucky to have had that kind of an upbringing.